And the first step we take with everybody, broad strokes, depending on whatever they're working on, is building self-awareness. So understanding how we're showing up. How am I being perceived? How do I feel? What is this doing to my message? And again, this is very general because it's specific on exactly what we're working on.
Yeah.
And then we get them to try on a couple of things. How does this feel? What does this do to my communication style? And getting that into our muscle memory and getting it so that we're doing it without thinking about it.
Yeah.
Takes time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Kerri Garbis, who is the CEO of Ovation Communication. Kerri, thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited for our talk.
You're welcome. Did you like that I waved, so just for the visual of it, that I was waving?
Yeah.
That. So for those just listening, I gave a really fun wave, and you'll never know.
You'll never know, but good cue for you to actually watch the video as well. But Kerri, tell everyone a little bit more about you, about Ovation Communication, what you guys are all about, who you help, and any context around the business.
Sure. My favorite topic. We're a communication skills training firm, and we specialize in professional presence and speaker development. So on the training side, the corporate training side, we support typically medium to large size organizations and supplement HR learning initiatives, L&D, and anybody who says, wow, we really need some help, maybe in presentation skills, storytelling, presence, will come in and maybe supplement or be a part of a larger learning experience, or just come in and be like, these people aren't talking to these people clearly. Can you help us? And we say yes and come in. We also get loads and loads and loads of speakers ready for events every year with speaker prep at all sorts of different conferences all over the globe. And luckily, with my fabulous, robust team, we can do that in multiple languages.
Yeah.
And all the trainers at Ovation Communication are professional actors. And that's my background. I've been an actress since I was a little kid. And I realized in my young adulthood that actors have important things to say to business professionals. So through some twists and turns, I started the company 14 years ago. Woo! I have not slept since. I'm exhausted, and now we have a team of 25
Awesome.
training all sorts of folks in all different industries. Everybody needs this kind of stuff, and especially now because human connection is in high need. I think because of the high pervasiveness of all the cool AI stuff that's going on, and we also need to balance that out with human to human stuff.
100%. And thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so interesting. Communication is something that I'm very, very passionate about. I've done my best to improve everywhere I can. I always like to become more eloquent or whatever else, right? But I think it's so often overlooked, especially because many businesses, they look at communication skills and they say, hey, maybe this is just something that is useful for our sales team, or maybe this is something that's only useful for our HR who's dealing with people all the time. So they look at these and they just always just have that superficial vision. What do you say, or what do you think about that? And also, have you found that to be a recurring theme in a lot of companies that you guys speak with, a lot of companies that you engage, where they don't see the full value of how clear communication, but also well communicated individuals internally can help the business grow?
Absolutely. And that is, I would like to think that people are getting that now. It is sometimes a challenge because we'll get asked sort of what I call an old school question of like, well, where's the ROI?
Yeah.
How can I see if you train our sales team in storytelling and we have an uptick of sales of closes, that's a 1-for-1. I can see what that is. If you train our engineers on telling a better story about the products that they're developing, that's not always quite a direct dollar to dollar kind of show.
Yeah.
And so with that, you have to dig a little deeper and understand. And as the leader of that group, perhaps think about, well, what is the value of, if people are communicating more clearly, is there an uptick in productivity? Also asking the individuals, and something that we do as one of the steps in our training is asking them before they go through learning experience with us is, how are you feeling? What's your confidence level? How are you feeling specifically about ABC, depending on what we're training them on? And then after the learning experience, and when I say after a learning experience, that's not solely after the workshop. That's
Yep.
after the workshop, they go through our blended learning retention path. They've gotten some rehearsal time. And now, maybe 3 or 6 months later, because these skills, like learning a better golf swing, take time to get into our muscle memory, then we ask them again, hey, how are you feeling? Are you feeling confident? And so that's a way that we can show this old school idea of ROI.
That's really interesting. Have you found that a lot of people, they have certain patterns when it comes to being hesitant in trying to improve their communication? Like they make these same little mistakes, or they're just scared of taking that first step of, how can I actually make this work and implement this into my day-to-day? So I can see the step 1 is this, and then step 2 is this, and then step 3 is this, but they often are looking so far ahead they forget the first step. So do you find that, do you find that to be the case for a lot of people? And what do you think those hesitancies are?
Sometimes we definitely see those patterns and the hesitancies. And the first step we take with everybody, broad strokes, depending on whatever they're working on, is building self-awareness. So understanding how we're showing up. How am I being perceived? How do I feel? What is this doing to my message? And again, this is very general because it's specific on exactly what we're working on.
Yeah.
And then we get them to try on a couple things. How does this feel? What does this do to my communication style? And getting that into our muscle memory and getting it so that we're doing it without thinking about it takes time. And so, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's go ahead,
We
finish your thought. Yeah.
systems and processes in place that people follow. The whole we work under the theory of that adults learn by real life application and practice over time.
Yeah.
You cannot go to one golf lesson and be an amazing golfer. You have to keep going and to your lessons, and you have to keep practicing in between.
And write feedback as well. It's not just about going and repeating the same actions. It's like, hey, look what you did, get the right feedback, apply the feedback as well. That's so interesting. Yeah. And it's funny because for someone who has done his best to really be aware of everything that's going on, I've found that a lot of people, they start to overthink. Hey, I'm saying this thing, and if they say every time, they're like, oh my god, I'm saying too much, and then like they start to go on this downward spiral, which obviously doesn't help anybody. And I think so many things in filler words can be part of communication, of course, that we don't want that to be exaggerated, but people focus on the wrong things. What do you think are some of the right things for people to focus on to start improving their communication in very easy steps? Maybe 1 to 3 things, if that comes to mind.
I would empower anybody I'm talking to think about it. If we can, release right and wrong and focus on productive or distracting. Because sometimes the filler words are super depending on who it is and what they're doing, that can be really detrimental to what's happening. It can also be part of who they are and part of their brand, if you will. Figuring out what is productive and not distracting or detracting from your message is a great place to start.
I really like that. I really, really like that. Thank you for sharing that, Kerri.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, so obviously 14 years, congratulations on that, first of all. That's a long time. That's a life. That's a long life. Talk to me about how, as you were growing the company, how were you facing the challenges? What were the challenges that were coming up? And how are they different from what you guys face now, and things that are obstacles in the way of achieving the growth that I'm assuming you're still looking to keep increasing to the business? Yeah.
Yes, I'm not resting on my laurels. one of the challenges that sometimes we still face today, especially if we're talking to a new marketing partner, is understanding that our buyers, the people that signed the checks, if anybody actually signed a check,
Sure.
essentially for the services of Ovation Communication, are not the people that get the training or the coaching.
Yeah.
And so understanding that we've got all this expertise in these really cool areas of content creation and messaging and confident, right? All that stuff. That's our expertise. And we have to market to someone who the problem we're solving for the buyer is different than the problem we're solving for what I would call the end user.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so finding that voice, whether that was digitally or even simply when it was just the beginning and it was just me going out and talking to people to make it clear of this is what we do, this is who we help, and it's sort of twofold. We help a content manager for a very large conference take things off their plate and help the conference run more smoothly. And the way we do that is by taking the speaker training off their plate, training the speakers and getting them to look like rock stars when they walk on stage, for example.
Yeah. So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's just being able to relay that message to the prospects in the way that is really going to resonate them with the value that, as we were speaking about before, with the value that it brings, not just specifically to them, but the end users of their company and how it's going to benefit them, benefit the entire company.
Yes. And making sure we're talking to the buyers more than the end users.
Yeah.
The end users get really well taken care of
Yeah.
when we're training them. The pre stuff, right? The relationship building, the marketing, the sale, that all has to go to not the people we're training.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And have you found that's to be the challenge? Because yeah, talk to me a little bit more. Why do you think that's been a challenge? You mentioned that as you were obviously growing the company, that was recurring, but also something that happens now. Do you think that has to do with the trust building process of where that comes from? And the reason why I ask is because a lot of the people that have been on the podcast as well, and even for the white paper that I mentioned to you, there's often a huge reliance on word of mouth and referrals, which are very great to grow these businesses, right? And you should 1,000,000% leverage that as much as possible. But then when it comes to anything else, there's usually some hesitancy or just maybe a lack of application in there. Do you think that that's because of the trust factor when it comes to building those relationships for you guys, as opposed to word of mouth and things like that, or think maybe something else?
For me, my experience is that there's a lot of people in this space.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people and companies that teach this stuff. And so oftentimes we will, because we're a small business, we're a team of 25. However, we service typically this medium to large size subset.
Yeah.
And I think when we have a lot of initial conversations, people are like, oh, it's Kerri, she's an actor, and you do the coaching. I'm like, no, I haven't coached anybody in like 8 years. No, you do it. And understanding that we're not cheap. I don't want to be cheap, and we're not going for individuals. We have gone down that road. We tried, especially over the height of the pandemic. I built what I thought was a super awesome B2C product.
Okay.
And really it wasn't as voraciously consumed as I thought. And to make it profitable for us, of course, the numbers would have to be gigantic, right? To sell a really cheap, inexpensive product. To make money, you have to do it at gigantic scale. And we started competing with an organization that has been around for ever, that is of household name. I'm not even going to say it. It rhymes with roast casters, and we couldn't do it, right? Because people were like, well, what's the difference between you and this? And I was like, well, we're awesome. And so I think I'm completely gone off the mark of what you wanted to talk about.
No, but
So
I'm loving this. This is
thanks for following me around this bizarro loop. That the so one coming back to the challenges is maybe not so much about trust, it's about education. Did I even answer a question you asked?
Yeah, no, you did. You did answer the question. Yeah, in a very long, different way, but you did answer the question. You did answer the question.
Well, it's very on brand for me. Very long and different way. Yes.
Yeah, no, and I think it's great as well because it's so. I think it's so interesting that there's so much opportunity. Like, for example, you guys have a great business. You've been helping so many great companies as well do a lot of amazing things. But it's like, how do you transfer that over? How do you make sure that everybody that comes on is also educated enough to make the right decisions based on the right information and knowing you in the right way? So, right, like, how do you make that happen? So, thank you for sharing that. And you said something in the middle there, which reminded me of a quote. You said, "We don't want to be cheap." And I love a quote that said that I'm gonna probably butcher it now, but it's something along the lines of, if you are the best, you are not cheap, and if you're cheap, you simply cannot be the best. So it's so interesting to hear that oftentimes people are competing or businesses are competing on, like, hey, how can we just go the lowest as possible? If they're doing 1,500, how can we do 1,400? And like everybody's just competing to get to the bottom, and then it's a race to nowhere. But again, if you're the cheapest, there's no way you're going to be the best. And if you're the best, there's no way you're going to be the cheapest. So I really love that you said we don't want to be cheap or inexpensive and whatever, right? So how can you leverage that as much as possible to keep growing the business and have better impact, but also achieve the goals that you guys have internally as well, which is very, very awesome. And I think very cool to have the transparency with. So thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to share that as well.
Thanks. Love it.
Yeah, 100%. And I wanted to ask you a question that I've been asking everybody on the podcast, which is kind of become a frame, I guess, in a way. So it's going to be no different for you. You're going to be a victim of it as well. And then I wanted to ask the final question, which we'll get to as well. But firstly, here it is. Kerri, let's say you had a magic wand and you could wave this amazing, phenomenal wand, and it could solve just one thing in the business, maybe an obstacle, a challenge, whatever it might be. And by solving this one thing, you achieve all the growth goals that you have for the business. Oftentimes, we have many things that we want to solve, but for this question, you only get one. What's the one thing that you like to solve?
I have to breathe through this for a minute.
Sure. Yeah. Think through. Take your time.
We have worked really hard. So not just me, like the way smarter people that are on my team with me, who I adore, have worked very hard to systemize all our processes so that we've been around the block. We're not flying by the seat of our pants. We know what we're doing. We have systems and processes in place. And we work really hard to ensure that our buyers are taken care of, the end users are taken care of, and things are done to a standard that is tantamount to the not cheap price that we're charging. So, and with all of that, we can handle more business. With the team I have in now, we could absolutely handle a good clip more than what we're doing. So my wish and my magic wand would be like, whip it in, people, more business.
At least through the door.
Yes.
Awesome.
Did that answer that question?
Oh, yeah. Whatever your wish is, if that's your wish, I'm not going to tell you it's not. I'm not going to take your wish away from you, Kerri. So that's, for sure. That's 100% it. And final question that I have for you here is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you. And they had no idea who you were.
I love it.
Yeah. Are you ready for the question?
Is it a video question or you're reading?
No, I will be reading it out. That will be kind of exciting. Maybe I'll note that down maybe for a future one.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
Like a
No.
pop-up video of like, hey, next guest. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Actually, knowing that now. Okay. So here's the question. Are you ready? The
Yes.
question is, have you started implementing AI into any outbound/inbound efforts, and what have been the positives and negatives of it?
Have I started to implement AI to any outbound or inbound marketing efforts? Is that the question?
Yep. And then what have been the positives and negatives of it?
Okay. A little, in that we use like we're communication skills. So for me to take away some of the human communication would feel a little weird. We leverage some very basic tools like Grammarly to help with writing,
Sure.
and maybe a few sequences where we have, I'm totally hijacking this question, where we have implemented AI is we developed a asynchronous rehearsal tool called Bravo. And that allows our end users, right, the people who go through the training, an opportunity to, after a training experience, go on the platform, either live record or upload,
Awesome.
and then they get AI driven metrics pumped back. So it's sort of this like AI coaching.
Yeah, it's
which
training from the training, coaching from the coaching. Yeah, that's very awesome. Very cool.
and that has been very helpful because we don't want just a one and done learning experience. We want it
Yeah.
pulled through. So that's part of some of the blended learning retention path that I talked about a little bit before. And so that tool is, did I say Encore? It's called Bravo. What did I call it before? This is the end of
I believe you said Encore. I believe
Encore.
Encore, but
My bad. Apologies, everybody listening. This is the end of a long. This is Jay for me. The blended retention path is called Encore. That product is called Bravo. So that's our asynchronous coaching tool that does utilize AI.
awesome. Very, very cool. Kerri, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your insights. I really like how charismatic you are and in the way that you go through answering the questions. So it's funny because oftentimes these conversations, most of them have been amazing conversations, and I won't take anything away from that. But oftentimes it's just like, hey, you're back and forth, back and forth. So I really always enjoy when there's a more organic or authentic way of really narrowing that, or going around it and having the conversation and the back and forth and whatever way that happens. Because I think that's actually how most conversations go, and I think that's also what brings the most value to everybody that listens as well. Especially, I don't know if this is the same for you, but when I'm listening to a podcast or a documentary or whatever it might be, I really like the all over the place stuff. So it encompasses what usually people relate to, but also what people resonate to. So thank you so much for this conversation. This has been great. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you, or maybe a little bit more about Ovation Communication?
Well, thank you so much. Well, come on over to getovation.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Insta. My goodness. And I'm going to go get some coffee to get me through this evening. So, and you can find that at Ovation. Oh, we're on YouTube now. We've got a YouTube channel, Ovation Communication, or follow me personally, Kerri Garbis.
Amazing. Kerri, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks. Thanks for following me around that like really long, windy.
Yeah, I always like going down windy roads, and you took me to a couple of them. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.